Okay, hello to the group. I'm going to do a unscripted video about my Nikon system because with my YouTube channel, I've noticed that my most viewed video of late has been with the Nikon series, which kind of blows my mind. So that tells me there's a lot of interest out there. So I want to give the people what they want. So what I have here is the Nikon 1V1 right here and the Nikon 1V3. First generation, third generation, and final generation on the V3. And I want to talk about lenses, because lenses are important. So there's a lot of competition out there right now these days for camera systems. Basically, the APS-C systems, excuse me, are there's a lot of great stuff, and I really like the Sony system. I sold. Correction. Yeah, I sold my Nikon or my Sony NEX7 circa 2012 when it first came out. I used it a lot, and then I didn't like the color science, and the color science was just subpar for me. I've always been a Nikon guy. I love the Nikon digital color systems that they have going on. And so I sold that camera and bought the Nikon 1V1. I bought this. Colors were excellent. Lenses are incredible. Lenses are I don't want to say without reproach, but they're awesome. The only thing I don't like about the lenses is that they're very slow. They're not fast. So that's something to work through. Also, we were dealing with a smaller sensor. We're dealing with a 1-inch sensor here. And the sensor size obviously limits, how big you can blow up images. And if you're just using digital stuff or posting them online or through the Insta or whatever, then that's fine. But if you're trying to print, 11 by 17 is going to be about your max for the V1. And the V3, I think you can go 12 by 18. It's interesting that I say that because I haven't printed anything from the V3. Shame on me. But what I really want to talk about are lenses for those that are shopping this system and are diehards. Let's see. Where should I start? Where should I start? The typical lens in the lineup is the 10 to 30. The 10 to 30 as I take stuff off here, and I want to read these correctly. A 3.5 to 5.6 variable aperture. This is an incredible, sharp lens, very convenient, just great. If you can get these, and there are some that I've found that they fail, kind of the buttons fail and different things, and they need to be repaired. But knock on wood, I haven't had any problems with this lens. It's a great go-to all-around lens, but it's 3.5 to 5.6, but it's a great lens. Love it. The next lens I just bought was the 10 millimeter 2.8. That's on the V1 here, and it's a 2.8, which is one of their it's not the fastest lens they have, but it's one of the fastest, and it's a fixed focal length. Another great lens, very inexpensive. You can maybe get them for less than $100. This right here is the 18.5, which is a 50 millimeter equivalent, approximate, and it is a 1.8 lens, very fast, fixed focal length, of course, and another crazy sharp lens. Out of all my lenses here, this might be my most favorite for everyday type stuff. But you're limited to 50 millimeter, 50 millimeter focal length. And here's another interesting thing to think about when you're purchasing lenses and systems and cameras and different things, is that let your equipment drive your creativity. Obviously, you have to, because if you're only shooting an 18.5 or 50 millimeter equivalent, then that's what you're shooting. And you have to mold your vision around the equipment you have and make it happen, for better or for worse. Usually it's about 90% worse and 10% better. You know, I mean, if you shoot 10 frames and get 1 frame out of it, you're doing pretty well. You really are. Of course, it depends on the subject too. As you know, there's a lot of YouTube things, a lot of YouTube videos out there that are filmed with the phone and just horrible, yet they might get 1 million views because of the subject matter. You know, so you got to work with that. Okay, I talked about this. Talked about that. My other second real good go-to lens is the 30 to 110. And the 30 to 110 is a 3.8 to 5.6. So this is about a 50 to 300 millimeter lens. And to have a 300 millimeter lens on this system, this small, is game changer. When you're photographing sports or doing whatever, or birds or outdoors type things. And this is great, crazy sharp. All these lenses right here are crazy sharp, with the exception of this, and I'll talk about this in a second. And that's the other thing about the Nikon system, however you want to say it, is their lenses are just amazing. So, another rat hole here. When you're talking about lenses with these higher apertures, you have a lot of, you don't have a shallow depth of field, meaning you don't have what's in focus and then what's not in focus blurry enough. And so that's the limitation of the system also, is that everything kind of looks all in focus, which creatively can be a bit fatiguing when you want your photos to have that pop of depth, you know, so the viewer can see this is in focus and that's out of focus. So you got to keep that in mind. Let's talk about prices real quick. The V1s are pretty cheap right now. 10 megapixel sensor. The thing I love about the V1 for some reason is the color. Okay, let me rephrase. Maybe more of the rendering. I think the colors are the same. It's the rendering. For some reason, the V1 photos just always look incredible. And I don't know if that's because of the resolution or what they're doing with their magical electronic powers in here to render the images. No idea. The V3 has 18 megapixel sensor, but for some reason, and maybe I just don't, maybe I have to, relook at my color settings in the camera. The colors and the black and white is just not as rich. So I've been using this V3 now for over 2 years, and it's pretty much all I grab. I don't ever really grab the V1 very much, because I want the bigger files, just in case I want to go big. Okay, that was that. Talked about this. Set that aside. My other lens that I really was chomping at the bit to get was the 6.7 by 13. This is their widest angle lens, and it's a 3.5 to 5.6 with VR. Chomping at the bit to get this, and I finally bought it, and it was crazy expensive. I don't know if it was like $650 or $700. Maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe it was more like $450. But for a lens in the system to be that expensive, it was nuts. Crazy wide angle, VR, incredible. But I never have really used super wide angle type stuff before. Yeah, it's like 18 to 35, I think, on this. I want to use it more. I just never reach for it for some reason, because it's limiting. Because once you go wide, you're going wide, and you're going wide until you take the lens off, and that's just me. And as you shoot, you will figure out what your style is and what you normally like to shoot and what you normally like to frame, and that's important. It's important to understand that. Great lens, crazy sharp, great lens. Yeah. So this one right here, let's see what the scope is. This is the 10 to 100. Another really good option to just have on your lens and just have it on there, and you have the crazy flexibility of the focal length. F4 to 5.6, so it's slower than a lot of the other lenses, but it allows you to have the capability to do a lot of different things. It's not as sharp. It's maybe about 80% sharp as all the other lenses here on this table, but crazy good option. You got to push the button here to release it. So crazy good option if you want one lens to carry around for everything. And the other great thing about this system is that it's so small. Obviously, you can have all these lenses in your bag if you're a real lens weirdo, like I am, of course, and you can take all these with you and have all these options to do whatever. Anyway, really good lens. I've used this lens a lot. Love it because it's so convenient, because it has everything on there. These were pretty expensive too, and since it came with the V3 system when I bought it used, that was a nice little perk. But gosh, I think these were $500 or $600. Okay, let's keep moving. Okay, so this for me was the holy grail of the whole system. 70 to 300 with VR. Stand by. 4.5 to 5.6. So this is 70 to 300, and so it's like a 1100 millimeter equivalent, maybe more. I'm gonna try to do the math. Anyway, we'll go with that. You can look it up. But right here, equivalent is as I look with my glasses, 189 to 810. It's always close. So when you're talking 810 millimeters on a handheld camera that you can carry with you, unreal. You can take pictures of the moon, different stuff. Of course, you have to have it on a tripod, yada yada. It's got the, and when you purchase these used, make sure you get the tripod mount. A lot of times you'll find them used from a Japan seller, a Japanese seller, and it won't have the tripod mount. You got to have that tripod mount, or else it's just and the hood. You got to have the hood too, because if you don't have the hood, then you just don't have the hood. A little bit ghetto. Anyway, I put that on later. But crazy sharp, need a lot of light or long shutter speeds, and it has VR. Awesome lens. These were, I think I got this I bought it off of KEH, and I think I paid something crazy cheap, $450, $4.25, which is a lot of money, but you can't find these. These are a holy grail, and you can't find these lenses. So yeah, great stuff. That takes care of the lenses. Let's talk about the lens adapter. So this is the FT1, and the FT1 allows you to mount F-series lenses to the CX system. Nothing really special about it, but it incorporates the electronics, and it allows you to do some things like mount the lenses. And that can be advantageous when you want to do something like that. These were a couple $100, I think. The only lens I think I am missing now that I just got this 10, which is the 24 millimeter equivalent, The only lens I'm missing is the 1.2, the 85 millimeter equivalent, which is like a 32 1.2 lens. I would like to have it so I can have a 1.2 85 millimeter lens, but I just haven't purchased it. And you got to be careful with lenses, because a lot of times the connectors, the interior connectors of the lens will disconnect or get corroded, and the lens will become inoperable. And then you have to get it repaired. And a lot of places don't do the repairs, which is a bummer. So you got to find a place, search online, go to the My Face, aka Facebook, and check it out. See who you can find, and you may have to even send it to Japan to get them fixed and looked at. So, what's the takeaway on all this? I don't know. I really don't. Because there are a lot of other good options out now. There's the Sony A6600, Sony A6700, small APS-C, big sensor, great lens selection for the Sony side. On the Nikon side, there's the Z50. Excuse me. There's the Z50, and I am tempted to go with the Z50, but there are basically no lenses for the Z50, and that's what really frustrates me about that stuff. Is there are some lenses, but there aren't the depth of lenses that the Sony system has. The thing about the Sony system is the color science. With these photos and my Nikon photos that I take either with my D3S or the V1 or the V3, I don't have to touch. All I have to do is adjust sharpening and maybe a half a stop of exposure, and that is it, and I'm done. Whereas on the Sony side, I always had to touch. I always had to find a modification to the colors, or something in Lightroom that adjusts something or other. And I don't want to say it becomes laborious, but when you have a lot of different photos you got to mess with different light and different conditions, it gets tough. And it's really nice to be able to take images and be done with them and go on to the next one. And that's what I love about the Nikon system. The color science is dead on for every camera they make, and I love that. They don't adjust the color science with every single camera. And that's not to say they make small adjustments and they tweak some things. There are some people that say the D3 color is incredible and the D4 is not as good as the D3, and then the D5 made it better. It's so minute and so small that it almost doesn't affect you. Whereas on the Sony side, every single Sony camera that's come out, it's been a new release of their color science. I keep using that. So this is my story of my gear. And I keep coming back to it. But nuts. It's 11-year-old system, right? 11 years old. So it doesn't have the face detect. It doesn't have all that fancy stuff that the newer cameras have. So you got to mess with the focus point. You can't just grab it and pick it up and take an in-focus picture of someone's face or an animal's face or yada, yada, yada. And you work through it. You just work through it. I got a hand grip on the 1V1, which I love, which you got to have. You got to have that. And then, of course, the V3 has the hand grip already built in, which is nice. Not already built in, but as an accessory that you can purchase. I wouldn't hesitate about any of this stuff. I really wouldn't. Especially if you know what I don't want to say know what you're doing, but know what you want and know the limitations and want to, experiment for a fairly inexpensive price. If you're buying this off of eBay or Craigslist or whatever, or somebody purchased it and isn't using it and it's 10 years old and they want to do something different. With the V3, 1V3, get the grip, get the eyepiece, and that's really about it for that. Because a lot of times you just get the V3 without the eyepiece and without the grip, and then it's just not as comfortable of a system to use. So this is my Nikon story. Oh, and try to get one of these too. These are just insanely awesome. It's funny because a lot of times you're consciously incompetent. You don't know what you don't know until you get the equipment. And then once you get the equipment, you're like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. I wish I would have known this. I wish I would have, what about this earlier? Yada, yada, yada. So think about that and let that be your guide. But I would not be afraid of the Nikon 1. And I wish Nikon would have stayed with this. I wish they would have kept developing it because they had something. Because this stuff shoots, don't quote me, but it's like 60 frames a second. Full res, full focusing, everything else. And this is like 20 or 30 frames a second. So they really had it dialed in 2010, 2009, 2012 when they released these systems. Really good stuff. And then they just dropped it, which is it was frustrating on the Nikon side. It really is when they do stuff like that. But all right, I hope this helps. Please like and subscribe. Please leave comments. I answer all my comments and everything, but choose wisely and make sure you buy from a reputable place. KEH is a great place because you can return things, and then go from there. And I haven't had to clean the sensors on any of these, and I've had this forever. I don't want to say 10 years, but maybe around 10 years, and this for about 3 years, 2 to 3 years. Never had to clean the sensor, which is great. Okay, thanks for watching. Cheers.